Captain Elias Ward sat alone in his quarters, staring at the quiet hum of the stars outside the viewing panel. The space station was silent at this hour, most crew members asleep, leaving him in the calm emptiness he had grown used to. Life on a remote diplomatic outpost was not exciting. For months he had been assigned to this station, monitoring trade routes and waiting for the next diplomatic meeting. It was a life of routine, quiet, and patience. But that night was different. The knock at his door was soft, almost hesitant. Elias turned his head, surprised. Few people ever came to his quarters unannounced. He rose from his chair, wondering who it could be at such an hour. When the door slid open, he froze. Standing there was Kaela, the Seraph envoy. She was tall, graceful, with silver patterns on her skin that shimmered faintly in the station lights. The Seraph were known across the galaxy for their strict formality, their endless ceremonies, and their distant way of speaking. To see one of them outside the diplomatic halls was rare enough. To see Kaela alone at his door was something Elias could not even begin to explain. "Captain Ward," she said softly, her voice calm but carrying a weight he could not define. Before Elias could reply, she stepped inside. He expected her to keep her usual distance, but instead, Kaela did something that made his breath catch. She carefully removed the heavy ceremonial cloak she always wore, piece by piece, setting it aside. Her people never shed these garments outside of private sanctuaries. For them, clothing was not just fabric, it was tradition, identity, and protection. Yet here she was, standing in his quarters, without the armor of her culture. "Kaela," Elias began, unsure what words could even fit the moment. She moved past him quietly, her silver eyes studying the simple room. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, she sat on the small bench near his bed and leaned lightly against his shoulder. The closeness startled him. Seraph were famous for avoiding touch. They considered it sacred, something shared only between bonded pairs, yet Kaela rested against him as though they had known each other for years. Elias did not move. He sat still, his mind racing with questions. Why was she here? Why would she risk breaking every rule of her people's traditions? And why? Why him? "You are wondering," she whispered, as though reading his thoughts. "Why I came?" "Yes," Elias admitted quietly. His voice was steady, but inside he felt a storm of confusion. Kaela closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. Her posture was calm, but Elias could sense tension beneath her stillness. She was taking a risk. He could see that much. "My people fear emotions," she said at last. "For centuries we locked them away. We covered ourselves in ritual, rules, and silence, so that we would never repeat the wars of our past. We do not touch. We do not share. We do not trust easily." Elias listened, careful not to interrupt. "But humans," she continued, her voice softer now. "You are different. You feel so much, yet you do not destroy yourselves with it. You argue, you laugh, you cry, you forgive. I have studied you. I have seen how you carry both strength and vulnerability, together. And I wondered." Her words faded, and Elias turned his head slightly to look at her. She opened her eyes, silver against the dark of his quarters. "I wondered if it was safe," she finished. "If emotions could exist without ruin, and so I came here, to you." Her honesty struck him more than her actions. She was not just curious, she was searching. For a moment, Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. Kaela was not simply breaking protocol, she was challenging the very foundation of her people's way of life. And she had chosen him, a single human captain, on a quiet station to test that fragile hope. "You risk a lot," Elias said carefully. "Yes," Kaela replied, her voice steady. "But sometimes a door must be opened. Sometimes a risk must be taken." The words lingered in the air. Elias could hear the faint hum of the station, the distant echo of machinery, and the steady rhythm of Kaela's breathing. It felt unreal, like the beginning of something he could not yet understand. For a long while they sat in silence. Kayla against his shoulder, Elias staring out the viewing panel at the endless sea of stars. It was not an ordinary silence. It was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and fragile trust. Elias realized then that this was not casual at all. For Kayla, this was extraordinary. And for him, it was a reminder of something he sometimes forgot, that humanity's greatest strength was not their ships, not their weapons, not even their technology. It was their ability to connect, to make others feel safe, even when the universe was vast and cold. Finally, Kayla spoke again, her voice low. I do not know what will come of this. Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. But for this moment, I wish to know what it felt like, to simply be close, as humans are. Elias nodded slowly. He understood. And though questions still crowded, his mind, he decided to let them rest for now. Some answers did not come through words. They came through presence, through quiet, through trust. Outside the window, a comet traced a faint line of light across the stars. Elias glanced at it, then at Kayla, and for the first time in a long while he felt that something extraordinary was beginning. And deep inside, he knew the universe would not be the same after this night. The next morning, the station woke as usual. Crews went about their duties, lights filled the corridors, and the hum of engines carried on without change. But in Captain Elias Ward's quarters, the air felt different. Kayla was still there. She had not left in the night, though she had returned to a calm, formal posture, as if the events of the previous evening had not happened. To anyone else, she would look like the perfect Seraph envoy, silent, dignified, controlled. But Elias knew better now. He made them both tea, a human gesture of hospitality. Kayla studied the steaming cup carefully before lifting it to her lips. Strange, she said softly. Bitter, yet calming. That's what most people say about it, Elias replied with a small smile. They sat at the small table in his quarters, the silence not uncomfortable but heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, Elias leaned forward. Why me? He asked. You could have chosen any human here. Why come to my door? Kayla's silver eyes flickered as if she weighed whether she should answer. Then she spoke. You listen, she said simply. In every meeting and every gathering, you listen before you speak. Many humans fill the silence with words. But you wait. You try to understand. Elias blinked. He had not expected such an observation. For my people, Kayla continued, that is a rare quality. It is why I trusted you first. Her honesty surprised him. But before he could reply, the calm hum of the station was broken by a sharp alert on his communicator. A priority message from command. He opened it quickly, and his stomach tightened. Incoming transmission detected. Seraph High Council units, en route. Arrival within 18 hours. Elias looked at Kayla. She remained composed, but he noticed the faintest tremor in her hands as she placed the tea down. They know, she whispered. Know what? Elias asked. That I have broken tradition. That I am here, not only as envoy but as seeker. They will not forgive it easily. Elias frowned. Seeker? Kayla stood, pacing slowly, her movements graceful but restless. For centuries, the Seraph have lived in silence. We believe emotions lead only to chaos. We teach our children to suppress every feeling, to wear the cloak, to speak in measured tones. It is survival, or so we were told. She stopped, looking toward the window where the stars stretched endlessly. But I have studied humans for years. Your wars are terrible, yes. But your peace, your connections, they are alive. You do not hide from joy or sorrow or love. You share them. You endure them. You grow stronger because of them. I wondered if such a thing could exist for my people without destroying us. Her voice grew softer, almost breaking. And so, I became a seeker. One who secretly studies what should not be studied. One who questions. For us, it is dangerous. but I could not stop. Elias listened quietly. He could see the weight she carried, the fear and hope bound together. This was no casual experiment. It was a risk that could change the future of her entire civilization. What will they do if they find out? Elias asked carefully. Kayla turned, her expression steady now, but her voice low. At best, exile. At worst, they will erase me. Not kill, not in the way you think, but remove me from memory. My name, my work, my very existence would be cut away, as if I had never been. Elias's chest tightened. The idea was chilling. A life erased not by death but by silence. Then we don't let them take you, he said firmly. Kayla looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. You would oppose the council for me? Elias leaned back, his jaw set. I'm not in the habit of handing people over to be erased. Not when all you've done is seek the truth. For a long moment, Kayla studied him. Then slowly, a faint smile touched her lips. For a Seraph, even that tiny curve of expression was a rebellion. But their fragile peace did not last. Hours later, the station's sensors detected the approaching ships. The Seraph vessels were sleek, sharp-edged, and coldly beautiful. They did not come for diplomacy. They came as enforcers. Alarms rang through the station. Crew members hurried to battle stations, though none expected to fight. The Seraph were allies, but allies with strict codes. Their presence here, unannounced, was alarming. In the command deck, Elias stood before the holographic display. Kyla stood beside him, her cloak once again around her shoulders, her formal. The Seraph ships glimmered coldly against the black expanse of space. Elias could see their sharp edges reflecting the station lights. He checked the sensors one last time. The fleet was well prepared, precise, and fast. If they wanted Kayla, they would not hesitate. Elias? Kayla's voice broke through his thoughts. She had removed her cloak, her silver skin glowing softly under the lights. We must move quickly. Their sensors are advanced. If we stay even a minute longer, they will lock us in. Elias nodded, heart pounding. Agreed. But the question is, where do we go? He tapped the console. Emergency protocols flashed across the display. There was a cargo shuttle ready for immediate launch, but its armor was light. It could not outrun the Seraph fleet for long. They needed something clever, something unpredictable. Kayla studied the holographic map of the outpost. Her eyes, sharp and observant, traced the corridors and docking bays. There is a maintenance tunnel, she said. It is narrow, unmonitored, and leads to the lower docks. We could reach the shuttle without being seen. Elias raised an eyebrow. A maintenance tunnel? That sounds risky. It is risky, Kayla admitted, but the alternative is surrender. Elias grinned faintly. Humans often thrived in impossible situations. This was another chance to prove it. Then we risk it. They slipped out of the command deck, moving quickly, but silently. The corridor lights flickered overhead. Every corner felt dangerous, every shadow a possible threat. Kayla stayed close to him, careful to keep her pace, but also watching the walls and ceiling like a predator scanning for traps. Elias realized that despite her calm demeanor, her heart must be racing. As they entered the maintenance tunnel, the air smelled faintly of lubricant and metal. The tunnel was narrow, forcing them to move in single file. The walls were covered with pipes, cables, and small service doors. It was far from comfortable, but it was hidden. Do humans always improvise, like this? Kayla asked quietly. Elias laughed softly. Not always, but when we need to, we get creative. They crawled through the tight passages, ducking under pipes and stepping over conduits. Kayla moved with surprising grace despite the awkward space. Elias admired her agility. If this were a different time, a different place, they might have been allies exploring uncharted terrain instead of fugitives fleeing a fleet. Halfway through the tunnel, they reached a junction. The map showed two paths. One led directly to the lower docks, but it was longer. The other was shorter but had a ventilation shaft they would have to crawl through. "Which way?" Kayla asked. Elias studied the map. "We take the vent. Faster, and no sensors. But it will be tight." Kayla hesitated. "I am not accustomed to such confinement." "Trust me," Elias said with a grin. "You'll be fine." One by one they crawled into the vent. The metal was cold against their skin. The space was cramped, barely enough to move, and the air smelled stale. But Elias felt alive. This was what humans did best: take risks, face danger, and find a way through it. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, they emerged near the shuttle bay. Elias peered out and saw the small cargo shuttle awaiting them. Its lights blinked, engines humming softly. A perfect escape vehicle, but also a beacon for anyone searching. "Quickly," he whispered. They climbed down and ran toward the shuttle, keeping low. Kayla followed, her movements fluid, graceful, and careful. Elias realized how extraordinary it was. This alien, so formal and distant by nature, was trusting him completely. They reached the shuttle, and Elias began pre-flight checks. The engines powered up, lights blinking across the control panel. Kayla hovered nearby, her eyes scanning the bay. "They will be close," she warned. Elias did not respond. He was already thinking several steps ahead. Humans did not just act. They planned, adjusted, and adapted in the moment. The Seraph fleet appeared above the station, sleek shadows in the void. Their sensors swept the area, but Elias had one advantage: improvisation. He tapped the shuttle's communications panel and broadcast a fake docking signal. The scanners registered a routine shuttle launch, hiding their real movement. Kayla's eyes widened. "Clever," she whispered. Elias smiled. "Humans make do with what we have." The shuttle lifted, engines humming loudly, and launched into the station's orbit. The Seraph ships adjusted, scanning for anomalies. One ship diverted toward them, its sensors glowing faintly red. Elias swore under his breath. "Hold on," he said. The shuttle jerked as he executed a sudden evasive maneuver, spiraling through the debris field near the station. Rocks, metal fragments, and abandoned satellites became cover. The Seraph ship followed but had difficulty keeping up in the tight space. Kayla gripped the edge of the seat, eyes wide. "Humans are unpredictable," she said. Elias laughed, the sound tense but exhilarated. "That's what keeps us alive." They continued weaving through debris, each turn calculated yet risky. The Seraph ship was fast, but not fast enough to anticipate human improvisation. Slowly, they gained distance. Finally, Elias leveled the shuttle and punched the engines forward. The stars stretched ahead like streaks of light. They were free for the moment, but the chase was far from over. Kayla exhaled, the tension leaving, her shoulders slightly. She looked at Elias. "You humans, you are brave in ways I cannot describe. You face danger without surrendering. You adapt without fear. I do not understand fully, but I feel it. Your courage." Elias smiled faintly. "It's what we do. Sometimes we win, sometimes we fail, but we never stop trying." She nodded slowly, absorbing the words. Her people might see bravery as reckless, but here, in this small shuttle moving through space, she saw it as extraordinary. Elias tapped the controls, plotting a course to the outer rim of the system. They had temporary safety, but more obstacles lay ahead. The Seraph fleet would not give up easily. Yet for the first time, Kayla felt something she had never felt before: trust. Not the formal trust of protocol, but the raw, unmeasured trust humans inspired through their actions. And Elias realized something too. Humans were not alone in this universe of strict rules and rigid societies. They could inspire change, even in those who seemed untouchable. The shuttle drifted through the stars, silent except for the soft hum of the engines. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of danger, mystery, and possibilities. Inside, a human captain and an alien envoy had begun a journey neither would forget. A journey that would test courage, loyalty, and the very power of connection. And, as they moved further from the station, Elias knew one truth above all. Humans were not only survivors, they were change-makers, even in the coldest reaches of space. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle's viewport, silent witnesses to a human and an alien fleeing a fleet that considered their actions unforgivable. Elias Ward sat in the pilot seat, hands steady on the controls, heart racing with the thrill and terror of the chase. Kayla sat beside him, her eyes scanning the instruments, her mind calculating the consequences that would follow every turn. "They are close," she said, her voice calm but tense. The sensors flickered as the Seraph fleet adjusted their course, gaining on them. Elias glanced at the display. "Yes," he admitted. "Too close for comfort. But comfort isn't our goal, is it?" Kayla gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Despite the danger, she had begun to understand the human way. Courage mixed with calculation, improvisation balanced with trust. "No," she said softly. "It is not." Elias smiled faintly. "Good. Then here's the plan." He tapped the shuttle's communications panel and activated a broadcast signal. It was bold, risky, and reckless by any standard, but it was human ingenuity in action. "Captain Ward," Kayla said, alarm flickering across her face. "What are you doing?" "I'm giving them a reason to hesitate," Elias explained. "Sometimes humans win by bluffing. They think we're weaker than we are, or stronger or unpredictable. Either way, they pause. That pause is what we need." Kayla frowned. "You cannot bluff the Seraph. Their logic is precise, their judgment is infallible." Elias chuckled. "That's what makes it perfect." He activated the broadcast, sending a bold message across open channels. "This shuttle carries the Seraph envoy Kayla. She is under human protection. Any attempt to capture her will be met with resistance." Kayla gasped. "You cannot. They will retaliate." "They will hesitate first," Elias said. "Humans have a way of changing outcomes by showing unexpected resolve. Let's see if it works." The shuttle's sensors began receiving responses immediately. Red lights flashed across the display. Multiple ships reacting, scanning, sending warnings. The fleet hesitated. For the first time, the Seraph did not move in perfect unison. Kayla's eyes widened. "It worked?" Elias nodded. "For now. But this is only the first step. We still need to get out of this system." She studied him carefully, realizing that the man she had met as a quiet observer in his quarters had become a daring strategist. Humans were reckless, yes, but in that recklessness lay brilliance. Their capacity to improvise, to gamble when the odds were against them, was something her people could not understand. "We must move," Elias said, already plotting a course. The shuttle turned sharply, weaving through an asteroid belt near the system's outer rim. The rocks provided cover, forcing the Seraph ships to slow down or risk collision. Kayla gripped the armrest, heart pounding as the shuttle ducked and dodged through jagged debris. "Your courage. It is extraordinary," she admitted fully, "but I feel it. Your bravery." The Seraph High Council chamber was vast, cold, and imposing. Silver light reflected off walls of polished metal, and hundreds of delegates watched from their seats. Every Seraph present maintained perfect posture, their faces an expressionless mask. Only Kayla and Elias stood before them, small figures in the center of centuries-old authority. Elias felt the weight of the moment. He had never faced a court like this, but humans were not easily intimidated. He straightened his back, eyes forward. Beside him, Kayla's silver eyes shone with both fear and resolve. "You have defied our laws." The chief delegate's voice rang out, echoing in the chamber. "You have abandoned the discipline and secrecy of your people. You have embraced emotions forbidden for centuries. Explain yourself." Kayla stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. "I sought understanding. I wished to know if it was possible for my people to feel and survive. I studied humans and I learned that emotions are not weaknesses, but a source of connection and strength." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many Sereth gasped, some whispered angrily. Their rigid system had no place for such ideas. The chief delegate's gaze fell on Elias. "And you, human, why involve yourself in our customs? Do you not see the danger? The chaos you have encouraged?" Elias met the delegate's eyes without flinching. "I see danger, yes, but I also see life. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes. We fight. We fail. But we also care. We protect. We trust. And we connect. Kayla trusted me. And I will not abandon her simply because your rules say I should." A tense silence fell over the chamber. The delegates were not used to words like these. Humans did not negotiate with logic alone. They challenged ideas, defied fear, and spoke truth with clarity. "You speak as if emotion is strength," the chief delegate said, voice tight. "It is weakness. It clouds judgment, leads to destruction." Elias shook his head. "It can lead to destruction, yes, but it can also lead to survival, courage, and understanding. Humans have survived countless wars and disasters because we adapt, because we trust each other, because we face our fears. And sometimes that is more powerful than rules or weapons." Kayla's hand brushed lightly against his arm, a quiet gesture of support. Elias felt the trust between them solidify. Together they faced the council, not as ruler and subject, but as two beings united by choice, not fear. The chief delegate's eyes narrowed. "You presume to teach us wisdom?" Elias shook his head again. "I do not teach. I show. You can see it yourself. Kayla, by choosing to understand rather than obey blindly, has opened a possibility your people have ignored for centuries. We, humans, do not claim perfection. We claim connection. That alone can change the world." The chamber erupted in whispers. The council members exchanged looks of shock, disbelief, and even admiration. It was unprecedented for a human to stand unafraid before their authority, and for a Sereth to support him. Kayla took a step forward, raising her voice for all to hear. "I choose life, not silence. I choose to feel, to understand, to trust. And I stand here, not as a rebel, but as someone who hopes my people can see a future beyond fear." The chief delegate's face grew pale. He did not expect this. Sereth tradition dictated obedience above all else. Yet here was a young envoy, refusing to hide, refusing to submit, and beside her a human who refused to back down. "You dare challenge centuries of law," the chief delegate thundered. Elias held his ground. "No, I challenge fear. I challenge the idea that life must be sacrificed for control. Humans survive because we trust each other, and Kayla has chosen to trust. That is all we ask." A tense hush fell over the chamber. For the first time, many Sereth delegates felt a stir within themselves, an unfamiliar, unsettling sensation. Some called it bravery, some called it confusion, but it was something new and it could not be ignored. The chief delegate's voice softened almost reluctantly. "And yet you have broken our rules. Punishment is required." Elias glanced at Kayla, who met his gaze with quiet courage. "Punishment does not have to mean destruction," he said. "It can mean choice. Let her live and let the council witness the possibilities of what humans call trust and understanding." Kayla's eyes glimmered. She realized that Elias was offering more than protection. He was offering hope. A human daring to risk everything for the belief that connection was more powerful than fear. The chamber fell silent. Delegates debated in hushed tones. Some argued that Kayla must be punished severely. Others, moved by her courage and Elias's words, hesitated. This was the first time in centuries that the council faced such a dilemma, a challenge not with weapons, but with ideals. Finally, the chief delegate spoke. "HFY, very well. You will not be destroyed. But your actions will be observed and you will answer for them in the coming cycles." Kayla exhaled, relief washing over her. Elias smiled faintly, proud but cautious. They had won a temporary reprieve, but the trial was not over. Their choices, their courage, would continue to ripple through Sereth society. As they left the chamber, Kayla whispered, "Humans, you are extraordinary." Elias chuckled softly. "We just try to survive. Sometimes, that's enough to make a difference." For Kayla, the lesson was clear. Humans had a strength her people had long ignored: the power to act with heart, to risk everything for trust, and to change minds not by command, but by courage. And as they walked away, the stars outside the chamber window seemed to shine a little brighter. For the first time in her life, Kayla felt hope, not only for herself, but for the possibility of a Seraph future that embraced connection as much as it valued tradition. Humans had shown her the meaning of courage, and she knew the galaxy would never forget it. The Seraph High Council chamber was silent. The delegates' faces were still, their eyes wide with the after-effects of the trial. Kayla stood beside Elias Ward, a human captain who had dared to challenge centuries of Seraph tradition. The weight of history pressed down on them, yet neither showed fear. They had survived challenges that would have broken many, and now, the consequences of their actions would ripple across the galaxy. The chief delegate, his expression unreadable, rose slowly. "You have defied every law, every expectation of your people," he said, his voice measured. "And yet, you survive." Elias met his gaze steadily. Because life is worth protecting, because trust is worth defending, humans survive not by rules, but by courage, connection, and heart. The chamber was tense. Delegates whispered to one another, debating. Some argued for strict punishment, claiming that Kayla and Elias had brought shame and disorder. Others felt an unfamiliar, stirring curiosity, admiration, even hope. For centuries, Seraph society had valued order above all else. Now, for the first time, they faced the power of human ideals, bravery, and connection. Kayla turned to Elias, her silver eyes shining. "Do you think we've changed anything?" she whispered. Elias smiled faintly. "We've planted a seed. Change takes time, but even seeds grow in the hardest soil." Suddenly, the chief delegate spoke again, softer this time. Perhaps there is merit in your words. Perhaps we have ignored something vital. Emotions, when guided, may strengthen rather than weaken." The chamber gasped. This was unprecedented. For the first time, a Seraph authority considered that humans might be right. Kayla's courage, combined with Elias's daring, had forced even the council to reconsider centuries of rigid thinking. "You will be observed," the chief delegate continued, "but you will remain free. Kayla, you may return to your duties, but you will carry the memory of this trial and its lesson." Kayla exhaled, relief washing over her. Elias gave her a reassuring nod. They had survived not through force, but through trust, courage, and understanding. As they left the chamber, the galaxy outside stretched vast and infinite. Stars gleamed like tiny beacons of hope, reminding them that even in the coldest reaches of space, life could endure and flourish. The corridors, Seraph citizens whispered among themselves. Some spoke with doubt, others with curiosity, and a few with quiet admiration. Kayla's actions had sparked something within them, a stirring they had not felt in generations. The human spirit, Elias realized, was contagious. Once aboard the shuttle, Kayla finally allowed herself to relax. She looked at Elias, her expression thoughtful. "Humans, you are extraordinary. You face the impossible and make it possible. You risk everything not for power, but for connection." Elias chuckled softly. "It's what we do. We don't always succeed. Sometimes we fail spectacularly, but we keep trying. And sometimes, that's enough to change the world." Kayla nodded slowly, understanding fully for the first time why humans had earned respect across the galaxy. It was not their ships, their weapons, or their technology that set them apart. It was their courage, their ability to trust, to act, and to care. The shuttle moved smoothly through space, leaving the council chamber behind. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a reminder of infinite possibilities. Elias and Kayla were free, for now, but more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Weeks later, reports trickled in from other Seraph outposts. Some delegates had begun to question old rules. Citizens whispered about Kayla's courage and Elias's bravery. The idea that emotions could be strength rather than weakness began to take hold. Slowly, subtly, the Seraph society that had once valued rigid order above all else was beginning to change. Kayla's reflecting on the journey. She had Kame,